So she worked her entire life and paid all her contributions, contributed to the economy and society, and yet she doesn't count. Like, walk in my shoes and know what it's like.
And I'm walking in your shoes.
So this is my mum, Kay Byrne. Over the last few years, she has developed dementia. She's currently in hospital in St James's in a psychiatric ward, and has been since August of last year, but she previously was in a medical ward. The reason I took her there last year was because her dementia was very unstable, very aggressive, very abusive. And while we were looking after her and intended to look after her for as long as possible, my own health was failing with it, and also my son, who has multiple medical conditions, including seizures, and they were increasing. So I had to make a decision for our safety and, of course, hers, because there was instances of her breaking handles off doors, threatening to go out and throw herself under cars, buses, in the canal. They were typical terms. Also, she had been in respite and escaped from there. She'll be 85 this year, so I think still she's got a strong heart. But like she had a tough life, I suppose. Like in those days, her mother was alone with children. They had to work, all of them, including her, starting at 4. She used to tell me she was I think 14 on a Friday, and she started work on a Monday. In some sweet factory or biscuit factory or something like that. But it was tough times. And all her jobs at that time and all through her life were all tough jobs. Because, I mean, she was clever doing the crosswords in the Irish Times, and that she could do them all and do crosswords. But she was a victim of not having opportunities, as a lot of people of her age were. So she had to do the menial jobs to pay the bills, to pay the wages, keep looking after her mother and the family. So she worked her entire life and paid all her contributions, contributed to the economy and society, and yet she doesn't count. I started to research where I could take her that would look after her and be best for her needs. I felt at the time a nursing home wasn't the right option for her. She has a sister in the same condition, a little bit less fire, I suppose, but she was nursing home material without a doubt, and we agreed with that, but my mother just wasn't. So is this Rita? In this country, you have to really try and find out everything you can. There's no one really to help you and say, look, this is what you could do, this is what you can't do. You have to just keep going, and luckily for Google, you can go up and try everything and look it up. And that's how I found Bloomfield. I actually was just Googling alternatives, and I came up with that, started researching it. This is ideal for my mother. I want to find out more. Sent an email, and then I was told of what has to happen. Now, at that stage, when I did inquire about Bloomfield, she wasn't in hospital, so the whole thing was a referral from a clinician or whatever, so that wasn't an option at that time. When she eventually went in, I was admitted as a patient, I started to ask about this. I found all the time that there was a lot of blocks against it. They didn't seem to want to do this. At one point I was told Bloomfield won't take her because she's not bad enough, as in aggressive enough, abusive enough. We'll need to put her somewhere else first, and then she can go there afterwards. And I went, well, that doesn't make any sense, because why move her twice when it's more upsetting? But the whole, this was by her then consultant at the time, felt that she wasn't, it was hard to get in there because she wasn't bad enough. Then eventually, after I suppose much pushing, and me getting an option of another clinician to do a referral, she decided she would refer her. So this happened in around September, October time of last year. I was told the referral was done. Around October, I got a call from the team to say we need to organise your mother's discharge. Can you have a meeting with us? So Julie rang back and said, what about Bloomfield? What about the referral? And they said, oh, sorry, she had her assessment and she's been denied. And I was shocked because I hadn't heard anything about it. So as I am quite curious and kind of have my wits about me, I actually rang Bloomfield and there was no such thing. There was never an assessment done, so there was never a denial done. And had I been maybe one of the other patient's relatives, I might have taken that as it was. So I went back to the team and I said, this is incorrect. And then they claimed crossed wires. Oh no, we didn't mean like that. This is what happened, that's what happened, whatever. From then on, the meeting, I did have a meeting with them afterwards and my friend was with me. They spoke about Bloomfield again and they said about fair deal. And I said, well, look, I really want to wait and see how she gets on in Bloomfield because that's what I have in my heart. That's what I want for her. So can I just wait and see? They asked me, yeah, that's fine. Can you chase up maybe getting an assessment? I certainly will. And that's exactly what I did. And she had her assessment in November. Now, I should have been told when that assessment was happening as well, because I wanted to kind of liaise with the people who were doing the assessment and be fully informed what was going on. But it's the communication in that Connolly Norman ward can be very poor, to be honest with you. And when I did find out that she had been assessed, I found out from Bloomfield. I found out that she'd been accepted from Bloomfield. The ward didn't tell me. And when I questioned this, I was actually told by the CNM then, I'm sorry, that was poor communication on our part. But I don't see it like that. I see it as a block again. So I didn't know. I think they hoped she wouldn't be accepted. And when she was, they weren't obviously... they were thinking, what are we going to do now? So next step was funding for Bloomfield. So that obviously happened after the assessment was approved and they felt she was a worthy candidate for Bloomfield. And might I say that in Bloomfield, they don't take people easily. And once they've been accepted there, you kind of have to disclose to other nursing homes she's been accepted there and puts a little bit of slant on it. But they don't take people easily. As her doctor, the consultant, had told me all along anyway. So funding, probably the Bloomfield sent a list of fees on what the funding options was. On the 12th of January, I received a letter from the head of the mental services there, a professor up there, and he said no, due to limited funding and due to needing funding for people who were more severe needs, words to that effect, and please continue with your fair deal application, which you've started with your team, blah, 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 which I'd never started.
You don't tiring yourself.
No, I won't. So from there on, I was shocked, and a couple of clinical people I knew were shocked because I was told once you'd been accepted, that was actually probably the biggest thing, getting her in there. And normally the funding follows the patient, was what one clinical nurse manager in another organisation told me. She said, no, the funding follows. So I was pretty shocked. I started trying to appeal it, where do I go, etc., etc. Unbelievable. There's more blocks put up all the way. And then I discovered that the HC have an appeal service, Donegal. No, we don't deal with that because it's not fair deal. The Ombudsman, we don't deal with that because the clinician made a decision. The funding department down in Naas in Millennium Park, they had got the application through for the funding, and I was told at a meeting the other day that he replied in 5 seconds, the head of this department, you basically given her doctors the decision to make. So the funding department didn't even make it. They put it back on the doctors. And what that did then was, because the doctors made the decision, meant that I have no appeal there. And there is nowhere to go about appealing this. Why is that, I want to know? Why can't somebody appeal? Yes, you can appeal on a lot of things, but on this, once the professor made his decision, there is no appeal. The only appeal I really have is my public representative Angus O'Snowdick, he's looking after me and doing Trojan work, as is his wife, and trying to get answers from ministers. I have emailed Minister Butler about, I'd say 8 times. Yes, I get responses within the hour, but they're all the same stock responses. Thank you for your additional information. We will look into this and get back to you with a decision or whatever. Every time's the same. I emailed Minister Donnelly a few times, and most recently, Mr. Donnelly, I wanted to ask Minister Donnelly, and I did ask him, could he answer the question why he stood in the Dáil a few weeks ago and bragging about 50 million for medical cards for Ukrainian people? I want to know the answer to that, because this woman here has worked since she was 14 years of age. People like her in their 80s, people of their generation, they worked in hard jobs, and they put everything into the economy, into the society. They did it all. All that generation did. They never stopped. So someone like her is being denied funding that has worked her whole life and contributed. My father was a public servant all his life, all his working life. And it's just like, no. And yet these people can stand there and offer 50 million euro, and that's only for this year. That's not the last 2 years of the medical cards. Just hand it out for people who've never done a day's work here. I don't understand it. I need an explanation of why is this happening. And then furthermore, the other day, I was shocked to see that 808,000 euro were spent on transporting pets and accommodation and vet bills for pets. I'm a dog lover. I have a dog. How could this money be spent? Is her life worth less than a dog's life or a cat's life? What is going on in this country? She's not alone. There's lots of people like her out there. There's children with scoliosis. It's the whole lot. It's broken. But, I mean, she's my concern at the moment. Look at her. I mean, what can be done? They don't care. And it's just getting worse and worse. And I want the best for her. And anyone out there, these ministers, anyone else, they all have had mothers or they have mothers. Like, walk in my shoes and know what it's like.
And I'm walking in your shoes.
And in terms of, yourself, you seem to have taken on the responsibility of caring for your mother, caring for your son. What is it like for you personally? And do you feel that, there are supports in place for people like yourself, carers like yourself?
No, the carers are probably the most forgotten contingent around, really they are, because they do work 24/7. I know I don't have her now at the moment home, but I had it, and my son I do have 24/7, but the poultry allowance you get for looking after people 24/7, it really is, they're forgotten about completely. It's very hard to get support. I really feel that if I wasn't so pale and stale and Irish, might have a bit more chance. I'd have NGOs knocking on my door to support my mother. And these are comments I think used by somebody in government, pale, stale and Irish. So if we weren't like that, I think we'd have a lot of NGOs knocking on our door to help us. But because we are who we are, we don't have anyone, just ourselves. I'm her voice, that's all we have. And in terms of anybody with disabilities and carers looking after them, they don't have any support. You have to go and beg and fight for everything because they don't care. They really don't.
And how much would it cost to put her in the Bloomfields place that you're looking at yourself?
I haven't got the figures, but I mean, I was quoted by the hospital, I just wanted to say the other day, so I don't know whether it's more expensive but while at the meeting the other day, when I met with the head of the mental health services for this particular area, in a rather, it was quite a fraught meeting. He was professional in a learned man, so he used that to professionally, I think, bully me, I'd put it that way, because everything was very polite. But I was basically told from that day on Tuesday, Mam was being charged $1,600 a week for her bed in St. James's. He quoted this because he said she was ready for discharge in October at the October meeting, which I discussed earlier. There was never any importance or onus put on this in October. It was just like, have you thought about a fair deal? And when I go back to saying I'd like to wait on Bloomfield. So he very nicely told me this is what was happening with a smile on his face. And it was basically, you take her out, she's ready for discharge. You sign a form now, or you pay the money. Were my options.
And there's nothing from the state to step in and, you know, be a bridge for her and for you until you figure out Bloomfields.
No, it was pretty much like the pressure was put on, like, it's starting today, so you get your finger out, get sorted, because this is what's happening. Smile, and that was it. And I was actually told, I was lucky I hadn't been charged since October. That's what I was dealing with the other day. There was there was about 5 or 6 of them in the room, and I was glad I took somebody with me, because it was horrendous. Why? Again, I want to know why she doesn't count. That someone has done all that her whole life, like millions like her have done that. Look at her there, like I'm adopted. She adopted me at 3 months. She had 5 stillborn children. And unfortunately then her one living son in 2015, he died. So all of her 6 children, you could say, is gone. So she's a tough life. And again, I'm not surprised that the memory and all that has something to do with all that trauma that she experienced. So she needs a break. She needs something. She needs to be looked after for all the things she's done.